Welcome back, brilliant minds. Mainly Facts is thrilled to have you here. Ready to dive into today's magic? Let's unravel the wonders together.
Story 1. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my girlfriend to stop effing eating? My 26 male sister, 23 female, runs a bakery business and she's been struggling lately to keep up with orders because she's been short-staffed. She does a lot of orders for wedding cakes that require custard or marmalade fillings, and I offered to help her out by making these fillings at home and bringing them to her so she has less work to do. Unfortunately, the past 4 times I've made these fillings, my girlfriend, 24 female, has literally dipped her fingers into the filling jars and contaminated them because, in her words, she just wanted to try some. I've tried to explaining to her that she can't dip her fingers in and contaminate the entire batch because then I have to remake it. I said she should use a spoon and take some out if she wants to try so bad, but she just pouts and says that she likes using her fingers because it takes her back to her childhood. Today, I was trying to finish some chocolate custard to send it over to my sister really fast because she was running late on a wedding cake order for an important client. I told my girlfriend beforehand to not eat the custard, and if she really wanted to please use a spoon. I get out of the shower, and what do I see? She has her fingers in it again. I totally lost it, because this is the 5th time she blatantly disregarded what I said, and I yelled at her and told her to stop eating the food I'm making because it's not for her and she's contaminating it. She started crying and got mad at me for fat shaming her, even though I made no comment on her weight and she has no history of weight issues or eating disorders. I know I was harsh, but she kept pushing my limits. Am I the a-hole? No, you are not the a-hole. Now granted, she might actually have some eating issues that she hasn't disclosed to you, and maybe that is a sensitive subject to her, and that might require some conversing, and maybe you were a tiny bit harsh, but honestly, no, you kept telling her you can't do that, you're contaminating it, and it's for your sister's business, which I assume your girlfriend knows has been struggling and you're trying to help her out. And the fact that you asked her to please just use a spoon if you're going to taste this stuff, and she's like, no, I like using my finger like when I was a little kid. You're not a little kid. You're an adult, and you're literally doing something that you've been asked multiple times not to because it's like a health code issue. So, no, this person is not the a-hole. That girlfriend is being an a-hole. She's being inconsiderate and not taking into account. She's not at all considering your feelings or just health in general. So, yeah, I'm not on her side at all. Story 2. Karen complains to HR about my body. I reverse her complaint. Everyone hates her. I used to work in a call center where everyone had little cubicles. You could chat with people on either side or behind you if things got slow, but anyone on the other side of the divider was sort of hard to see or chat with. Only important because Karen was in this hard-to-see location from me. I have issues with overheating medical stuff. I like to sit right under the AC vent. Nobody fought me for this because I was a little too cold for most people. Well, being a woman, this meant that sometimes I had some nipple pokey issues on some days. It's perfectly natural, and to most people, not noticeable because it was under my shirt and bra. Karen notices this and makes a report to HR. The HR woman and my direct supervisor parade me through the cubicles and into their office to question me about my nipples. Now, I could have thrown a fit about this to begin with, since we didn't actually have a dress code and it's none of their damn business. They asked me to prove I was wearing a bra, so I showed them the strap. They told me, good enough, basically, and to go back to my desk. I refused to go back. I said I needed a place to complain about someone. They asked me who I was reporting, and I said, I don't know, but you do. I want to report whoever it was that's been staring at my breasts all day. Now that I know someone is staring, I feel like this is a hostile work environment. They acted like I was joking at first until I said, if you don't have a talk with them, I will go over your heads and report you for forcing me to reveal my bra to you. I got escorted back to my desk, and Karen was sitting there looking smug until they escorted her to the HR office instead. I don't know what happened to her in the office, and I didn't care. They did their part by having their talk with her. All I really wanted was to know who did it. Since it was a very slow day, all my coworkers started asking me what that was all about. Office gossip, you know. I told everyone exactly what had happened and added that Karen must have been fascinated with my breasts since she noticed. Everyone else confirmed they didn't even notice. When she came back from HR, every person in the room knew what she had done and was glaring at her. Snitches didn't get stitches and didn't get fired either, but they got treated like the Karen they were. Nobody would talk to her. People would be chatting, see her, come try to join the conversation, and go silent and turn away from her. Some people made loud whispers and made comments like, "Don't say anything, she will report you." She quit about 2 weeks later. Edit. Wow, this is the most notifications I've ever logged into. Thank you for the awards and replies. For those saying I should sue, this is about 7 years ago. The company no longer exists. I didn't sue them back then because the company was pretty new and they were new to their position just like the rest of us and in their 20s. They seemed like they were not trained on how to handle this, awkward and confused. I didn't want to ruin their lives over it. I don't think they'd ever do it again. For those saying she was jealous, I have no idea what she could have been jealous of. I was almost 40, gaining weight fast from my disability, and I'd say 4 out of 10. All I can think is maybe she was jealous I was giggling with coworkers while trying to quietly play Cards Against Humanity. Just why do people have to comment on other people's, dress and bodies in that kind of way? Who cares if she wasn't wearing a bra and her nipples were poking through? They're just nipples. The vast majority of us have them. It's not a big deal. I got some nippies right under here. Ooh! Who cares if I was cold? There's probably been some times in this office where I've been kind of cold and maybe they came through in a video. Are you guys gonna complain to YouTube HR and have me marched on down to the office? Good luck. They're not speaking with me. They're not taking my calls anymore. I don't know where I'm going with this. Next story. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for giving my ex-wife a large amount of money I won, despite the anger of my girlfriend? I recently won an FU amount of money. I won't say exactly how much, but it's in the millions. It makes me feel funny even typing. It's enough to change the life of myself and my family. My ex-wife is the mother of my 2 kids. She's an amazing woman and good to the bone. We divorced 6 years ago because I had an affair with my current partner. I was in a low place in my life, and I effed up. She was an incredible pain, but like an effing saint, she allowed me to still see our kids who mean the world to me, allowed our divorce to be as pain-free as possible despite the fact that I know she was hurting. She still is close with my parents. She's respectful to me, although she refuses to talk to my girlfriend. She was actually the first person I phoned after my mom and pops found out I won the lottery. She was pleased with me and joked that I could take the kids on a world-round trip, and that was that. Nothing else. As soon as I won, I knew I wanted to give her a significant amount. I still love her. She's the mother of my babies, and I feel like this is, in some small way, I can show her that I'm not a complete F-up. She deserves to know that I care despite my mistakes. She also works a crappy job in the public library, which pays her peanuts. She would absolutely be able to pursue her hobbies this way. Give our kids a better life between us. I haven't discussed this with my ex yet, but I have with my parents who strongly agree and my lawyer who was very surprised but on board. Long story short, when I told my girlfriend, she was livid, screaming that I'm disrespecting her, accusing me of still being in love with my ex-wife. I'm not in love with her. We've both grown apart, but of course, I still love her for being an excellent co-parenting partner and mother to my kids. My girlfriend is threatening to break up with me, and I'm feeling incredibly relieved over the threats. I don't plan on changing my plans, but am I the a-hole? Nope, you're not the a-hole. I think that's pretty considerate, honestly. I'm on this guy's side. You realize that you're co-parenting with her, even though you are now divorced and everything. Her well-being also affects the well-being of your kids, so I think that's fine. And hey, in a divorce, normally, you lose, half of what you got and stuff. So if you had won this money before the divorce, it would have gotten separated. Granted, that was 6 years ago. That doesn't carry on forever, but you're being good about this. She was a good person. You want to share it with her. I think that's fine. You want it. Spread the love. It's good for her. It's good for the kids. You're still on friendly terms. I think that's fine. And granted, I think you should care about, the opinions of your current girlfriend and stuff. But it also sounds like the fact that she's threatening to break up with you and you feel relieved about that maybe says something about that relationship and where you are with that. That might be a whole separate thing you need to figure out. But hey, you don't have to worry about a lot of other things in life anymore, so I guess you can worry about that now. Story 2. Give my kid your PS5 or you've ruined his Christmas. So the other day, I, 30 male, got lucky and managed to get a hold of a PS5, which is like gold dust in the UK at the moment. Work has been ridiculous this year and my PS4 broke a few months back, so I'm hyped for it, and some holiday downtime is an understatement. The console finally arrived the other day and was left with my neighbor. I knocked on the door, thanked them for taking the parcel, and exchanged some pleasantries. When she casually asked if it was anything nice, I told her it was a PS5. We had the usual small talk, and I went back inside thinking nothing of it. Later, we had a knock on the door from her husband, 38-ish. He said that his wife had mentioned I'd gotten a PS5 and they wanted one for their 7-year-old son. It was all his son wanted this year, and it's been a tough year for his son as he's not been able to see his friends much, so would I consider selling it to them for what I bought it for? I said I understood, but I really didn't want to sell it as I was looking forward to playing it. That's when things got a bit weird. He huffed a little and said Christmas should be about kids, and I should really consider how hard it's been for them, and offered me an extra £50. I said I wouldn't be selling it for any price. I wasn't looking to make money on it, I just really wanted to play it. He left, but said he hoped I'd reconsider as, you and I are a bit old for video games anyway, and walked off. End of story, I thought. The next day he comes over again, this time with his son. He said his son really wanted to see the PS5 he had heard about. The boy then said to me that's what he really wanted for Christmas and hoped Santa would get him one. I replied that hopefully he would, but it's really busy for him this year, so he might have to wait a little longer for it, but I'm not sure. I'm sure he gets something nice instead. Another day passes and my fiance said they had posted something weird on social media about, there's a neighborhood group, how they had thought 2020 would have made people less selfish and more giving, but they were disappointed in their neighborhood, which had forgotten community spirit, and how people should be more thoughtful towards the children in the street, given how much they'd all suffered this year. Off the back of it, my fiancé asked if I should sell them the console just to keep the peace. Later in the day, they came around again to tell me that I had promised their son he'd be getting a PS5 for Christmas, and now it would be ruined if he didn't get one. She said that I am an adult and should be thinking of kids at Christmas, not acting like one playing video games, and that I was being unbelievably selfish and cruel. He added that he didn't know how we would enjoy Christmas knowing we were horrible people that had ruined a 7-year-old's Christmas. Now, I've also heard from some people on the street that they've been talking crap about us to people, though most neighbors are just staying out of it, but we're definitely getting some daggers from the Mums Who Lunch crew. We live in a super nice neighborhood, but it's firmly middle class. Lots of private school kids called Haiti and Sebastian, etc. We're definitely the youngest on the street and the weird childless couple, which I don't think PS5 Gate is helping with. My fiancé just wants to sell it to them to end it, but I'm still trying to hold firm. Honestly, feel like I'm losing my mind at this point. So, no shame on them for initially asking you if you would be willing to sell it because their kid wanted one. That's fine. And then for even being like, oh, sure, I'll give you an extra £50. I think that's fine. We have not crossed a line yet. But then, to bring the child over and be like, he just wanted to see the PS5, which he wants ever so much. Tell them how much you want the PS5. Oh, yes, sir, please. If only I could see the PS5 but once, that would be ever so nice. I do so hope that Santa Claus brings me one, or I shall have my dreams and hopes crushed forever. Like, what's wrong with you? Don't do that. That's such gross guilt tripping. At that point, I would be walking by their place every day being like, I do so enjoy playing on my PS5. I've enjoyed playing on it every single night. Ha 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 ha. Yeesh. Story 1. I'm not infertile. It's a lie, and I would rather die than give birth. I come from a very religious culture, and though I emigrated with my family, I'm still in a conservative country. I don't want children, I never have, and never will want kids. The pressure to get married and have children started as soon as I finished my university education. Luckily, though the country I live in is conservative, you can't share medical info without approval from the patient. So as far as my immediate and extended family knows, I'm infertile, like no chance of ever having kids naturally. Whenever they ask for results, I cry and talk about how I don't want to share the shame that my body betrayed me. It's a lie. Nothing is wrong with me, but I'm going to pretend until I can get sterilized in another country. Arranged marriages are still common in my culture, and I'm not a choice for most people, thank God. This might seem extreme to some, but you have clearly never been stripped of your choices. I'm aware I'm manipulating people, but to be honest, if it's my wants versus theirs, I'm picking mine. Tears quickly dissuade my family, my dad especially, for asking for proof, but that effect is waning. My goal is to get sterilized as soon as possible and then deal with the fallout. I can't tell anyone, so I'm going anonymous on Reddit. So that's my secret. Well, I hope that it remains your secret and that no one ever pressures you against it, because the fact that you're in a culture or a country that would almost demand that of you unless you can just get away with saying you're infertile, that sucks. That sucks so much. No one should have to have that kind of pressure on them. You should have a choice whether or not you want to have kids and not be judged if you don't want kids, he said as a person who doesn't want kids. And, I hate that you have to lie to your family and stuff and you can't just be open and honest, because keeping that inside of you has to feel a little bit bad. But I think you have every right to lie if it helps you get away with that in a place where people would otherwise not value your opinion and your rights. So keep on lying. I hope it works. Story 2. I accidentally caused a war between my family and my brother's wife's family with one innocent text message. So, my brother's wedding happened 2 days ago, and it turned into a complete chaos, which I know even though I wasn't there. You might wonder why I didn't attend the wedding if it was my brother's. Well, it's because of his wife's family. He did send me an invitation to the wedding because he wanted me there, but his fiancée told him I couldn't attend because I had a boyfriend. You might be confused, but I'm a man. A bisexual man to be exact, and I have a boyfriend who I wanted to bring to the wedding. She said even though she doesn't have a problem with that, and he doesn't have a problem with that, her extremely religious parents who already forced her to do a wedding in a church would most likely banish us from the wedding and cause trouble between our families. After she told him that my brother told me I couldn't attend and told me why, you might think I was angry. The truth is, I was relieved. I hate going to big events with lots of people because of my social anxiety, and I already was used to not being able to attend certain events because of my sexuality, so it was nothing I haven't heard before. So on the day of the wedding, I stayed at home with my boyfriend. It's worth mentioning my parents apparently didn't know I wasn't attending the wedding. I was chilling at home, cuddling with my boyfriend when I suddenly got a text message from my parents asking me where I was because they couldn't find me at the wedding party. I told them I wasn't attending the wedding and that my brother hadn't told them anything. They said no and asked me what happened. I didn't see any reason to lie, so I sent them a text message telling them exactly why. Now, I have to admit I don't exactly know what happened after I sent them this message because they read it but didn't reply. And why did they care in the first place? They didn't notice I wasn't there until the wedding was already over. They only noticed when the wedding party started. However, apparently my parents talked to my brother about it, and all of a sudden my absence was the main topic of the wedding party. From what I heard, two fronts formed. On the one hand, my parents and the rest of my family were against the family of my brother's wife, and apparently he, as a husband, now felt compelled to take her side and tried to argue in her favor. It's crazy to think that I was just sitting at home living my best life with my boyfriend while all of that crap went down on his wedding. The wedding party was ruined, and my brother appeared on my door angrily screaming at me why I felt the need to ruin his wedding. I was confused and asked him what happened, and he told me everything. I told him it wasn't my intention. I just told our parents what happened because they didn't know and wanted to know where I was, and I thought he told them beforehand. He screamed at me that I ruined his wedding. I told him it's not my fault he wasn't honest with them. I just respected their wish to not attend the wedding. I didn't know it would go down like this because I said I couldn't attend several events before because of my sexuality, and my parents never said anything about it, so I thought it would be the same thing here. But I gotta admit, it's kind of sweet that my parents and the rest of my family stood up for me. They haven't done it before. That's more than a welcome change. But I still kind of feel bad because apparently I really ruined the wedding party. I think that your new sister-in-law and her family are the ones who kind of ruined the wedding party because I'm sorry, if she's not letting her husband invite his brother because her religious family are a bunch of bigots, then no, they're the ones who are ruining it. Like, if my family was not okay with, my part, what if I was in this situation, if I was her and I knew my family didn't like those folks, I'd tell them, hey, just so you know, my brother's, or my fiance's brother is bisexual and is going to have a boyfriend there. And if you have a problem with it, don't come to the wedding. Because I would care more about just being a moral person and supporting that than just trying to oh, my family, they'll get mad. They made me get married in a church. No, you're an adult. You have to make decisions. So you made a choice. And then it got out, the choice that you made, and that caused a problem. It is not the poster's problem. So, this makes me mad. Story 3. Started doing less work because my foreman made it clear he wanted quality over quantity. I was working in a metal fabrication shop, and we were repairing a bunch of parts that came off the robot. Basically, there was quite a bit of work that went into each part, but there was about 12 inches of weld that the robot couldn't do that we had to do by hand, and they had to pass ultrasonic testing. So I was getting 10 parts done in a shift as well as 120 inches of weld, while the guy I was working with would get 2 parts done and 24 inches of weld. One Friday, the foreman came over and asked the other guy if he wanted to work Saturday, but not me. I asked if he could use my help too, and he said, no, I'd rather have guys working Saturday that can pass their UTs 100%. I pointed out that not only did I do 5 times the work, but I passed about 99% of the time. I would fail about 1 inch of weld per 120 inches, and I'd have it repaired and passed before the end of the shift. This still wasn't good enough and basically told me it doesn't matter since I'm still failing. So, come Monday, I only started finishing 2 parts a day and got my passing rate up to 100%. Foreman comes over frantically in the middle of the week trying to find out why my productivity has decreased so dramatically, and I said, sorry boss, I was trying to work on my pass rate. His face got so effing red it was hard to keep a straight face, but I started getting Saturday work after that. Just look at the results, bosses, okay? Bosses, managers who get so caught up in the way things are done, the speed things are done, and not the actual results. If the results of this person are getting so much more work done and almost no fail rate and the ability to always fix any small failures while still getting way more work done, how is that not okay? How are you looking at the person who's doing so much less work but doing it just a tiny, tiny fraction better, and you're like, no, yep, that's the way you should be doing it. Shame on you. And now you're going to suffer because of that. And then, of course, yeah, this person does what the boss basically said was the right thing and gets mad about that. It's this idiotic tendency for bosses to ignore any kind of nuance when it comes to managing people. They just have these hard lines in their head that they are unwilling to let be crossed until it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense because they've made these weird hard lines in a way that just will never properly add up. And so they're always mad and always doing a bad job. I'm getting so flustered. I'm getting so confused that none of this even makes any sense. My comment is nonsense, but we're going to stick with it. Next story. Story 1. My sister-in-law announced her engagement shortly after ours and wore an exact replica of my ring, and I need help navigating my feelings. I'd appreciate any advice on how to approach the situation or behave from here on out. My fiancé Steve asked for my hand in marriage, and our wedding will be this summer. Naturally, we're both very excited and have been for the past months. We've been together for 8 years and have gone through college together, traveled the world, and have cultivated a large but close friend group we're very happy with. He has a sister who's always kind of felt like a one-upper to him. In the past, I've tried to be the voice of reason. She was kind of lonely, didn't have many friends, and one past painful relationship. So we have tried to include her, patch up the relationship, and so on, but it never really became a close relationship. The reasons why have always been there looking back. She either acts jealous towards me, or he announces anything special, she has to one-up him, be the center of attention, etc. He says it has always been this way, even back when they were children. There is this weird, unspoken competition between her and everybody else in the family where she is always trying to belittle another person or steal the show. Needless to say, it has become quite annoying, but so far neither of us have lost their temper with her. A few days ago at a family get-together, they were drinking wine and cheering, and his sister and her new partner of 1.5 years announced their engagement out of nowhere, seemingly, just shy of a month after moving to the city together. We're happy, smiling, trying to push away the weird gut feeling that comes creeping up, but then we both catch a glimpse of her ring finger and suspect they copied our ring. After a while, it sank in. It is an exact copy of the engagement ring her brother had carefully picked out for me. We tried to take the high road, congratulated, but soon thereafter left for our house. In the past few days, both of us have been very upset, disappointed, angry, and we are also weirded out by it and incredibly put off. I'm trying to contain myself. I'm telling myself that it's only a materialistic thing, and if she's found happiness, we should be sharing that. But on the inside, I am fuming, and so is my fiancé. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you all I want that, yeah, it is just a materialistic thing, and all that truly matters is your own happiness. And so I wouldn't try to be too concerned about it, but I know that I would be. I know that I would be upset about that too. I mean, thankfully, my siblings are all wonderful, and I don't think I would ever have to worry about this. And my partner has no siblings, so this is a non-issue, but I can imagine being in that situation, and it would absolutely bother me. But I think the best thing that you can do is throw the biggest, best, coolest wedding you can think of. Okay, maybe not biggest, like super expensive, whatever, but just make it super cool in ways that she can't possibly trump. Or let her do her wedding first. Like, wait for them to do their wedding and then one-up her wedding. Oh my gosh, one-up it. Everything she does, do it bigger and better. Destroy her! I'm not helping things at all. Story 2. Sometimes I catch my husband staring at our pantry or our fridge when he doesn't know I'm looking. My own family is not rich. Both of my parents had to work full-time. My clothes were mostly second-hand or hand-me-downs, though this was probably because of convenience since I have 3 sisters. And our house was small, and I always had to share a room with one of my sisters. But we always had enough to eat, and my parents always took us on a road trip vacation every summer. If there were any money problems, me and my sisters never knew about it. My parents always made sure that we knew we were loved, too. It was different for my husband. Sometimes they were homeless or living in places not fit for anyone to live. Both of his parents used physical punishment and were in prison some of the time. He went hungry lots of the time, and he never had adequate clothing for the winter. He told me about the first time he could afford a proper place to live when he was an adult. I've seen pictures. It was so small, but it had a locking door and was insulated from the cold. He told me about the first time he got a job that paid more in a month than what his bills were and the shock of having money left after he paid everything. Or about being able to buy a real bed instead of just a mattress on the floor. Or when his winter boots had a hole in them and he could afford to buy a brand new pair instead of wearing a plastic bag on his foot to keep it dry. All these things that I never thought of. We bought a house this year and our kitchen is huge. Since we moved in, I sometimes catch my husband staring at our pantry or our fridge. He only does this when he thinks I'm not looking, and I never say anything, but I know it's because he can't believe sometimes that we have all that food and he doesn't have to worry about hunger. I make it a point now to make sure our pantry and fridge are always full. When it's my turn to take care of meals, I make sure there's enough for seconds or leftovers. I have a whole stack of recipes that sound weird but taste good for when we have leftovers or odds and ends, so no food expires or is wasted. I also make sure that the house is always warm no matter what, and that my husband has a clean sweater and warm socks every day outside of the summer. Just because I know how he grew up, and I don't ever want him to feel that way again. I've never said anything to him, though, because I don't want to embarrass him or make him self-conscious. I mean, what really am I going to add to this other than that is really, really touching and just a wonderful thing that you're doing. And yeah, let him have these moments. And I don't feel like he would be too embarrassed if you did bring it up. But I don't know, maybe, I don't think it hurts to not say anything and just make sure he has these little comforts. I was never in as dire straits as him, but I have lived in some places that were shoddy and uncomfortable. I have struggled with money where I wasn't making enough for bills and struggling to get by. I had one place where I lived where for a month straight, literally the only thing I could afford to eat all month was like this big bulk thing of cheap ramen. And I was very sick. And now I do appreciate a lot of that stuff. And I do a ton of home cooking and all this stuff. And I do canning of vegetables. And it means a lot to me. And it really genuinely does. So I kind of understand where he's coming from. And yeah, it's nice to finally get to a place where you don't have to worry about stuff. So I'm glad that you two have that. And I'm glad that you can make sure that he doesn't have to relive those past days. Story 1. My sister-in-law, 37 female, isn't speaking to anyone, including her mom, 60 female, because we put my kid, 2, first. So I made a post about her a week ago regarding a huge fight on Christmas between my sister-in-law and my husband. To keep it short, she had an attitude because the previous day went to look at Christmas lights without her because she took forever, and because of the attitude she didn't put her humongous dog away. My toddler was scared of it all Christmas Day, and my baby couldn't enjoy her day. Also, her family gave my kids RSV. Knowingly. So days later, she went on Instagram and called us toxic in a post. My husband and I unfollowed her and left her alone. I talked to my mother-in-law yesterday, and she said that her daughter isn't talking to her anymore because my mother-in-law agreed that the dog should have been put away. My sister-in-law's exact words were, "You're supposed to put me first before the grandkids," meaning my kids. How do we go about it with someone who talks like that? Is there any way to get through to her? I don't know. When a person is 37 years old and doesn't care enough about children, what would be her niece or nephew and her mom's grandkids and stuff, when she doesn't care at least as much about them as herself, that's just kind of a selfish person, and I don't know that she's going to change at that point, being 37 years old, unless you all are just like, oh, you don't want to talk to us anymore? Yeah, we don't want to talk to you. You're kind of unpleasant. Like, I don't know what else you do, and at that point, she might still just think that she's justified, so you can try and have some good, open, honest conversation with her, but I don't exactly feel like that's going to help necessarily, so I don't know, give it a try, but otherwise, if she doesn't want to talk to you, that doesn't seem like the worst outcome. Story 2. I got an angry text from my child's father's wife about him spending money on us. I met this man at work when I was 21, he was 30. He was my first relationship, and I ended up pregnant. We broke up when our son was 2, and he's now 10. He got married 5 years ago and has 2 small children. It might seem weird, but he's kept that part of his life very separate from our son and I. I've never met his wife or his other children, and neither has my son. My son doesn't spend nights with him. This is something his father and I both agree on. I don't want my son feeling like the odd one out. His dad sees him a couple evenings after work and on the weekend. Usually it's just them, but occasionally the 3 of us do something together. He's not on child support, but he provides for our son financially. My son gets him less than his other kids, so he compensates how he can. My son has a PS5, a new iPhone, and an expensive bike. His dad gives him Roblox money and Lego sets whenever he asks. He reimburses me for buying him nice clothing and shoes. He pays for his school and sports. I get the occasional gift, and it's usually flowers. He gives me more on a special occasion like Christmas or my birthday. Once in a while, he'll take me shopping as a thank you for being a good mom. We don't have intercourse. And this is the subject of the text I got from his wife, someone I've never communicated with. What she wrote: "My name is her name. I know we don't know each other, but I'm tired of keeping my mouth shut. You are a sick woman for doing what you do. He is married. You had your chance and lost him. You're sleeping with a married man. He's not yours just because you had his kid, a kid you used to take his money. My kids are his legitimate children and don't have half of what he buys your son. Why? Because I can't bribe him with intercourse. You have no right to take gifts from my husband or have him in your house. I watch what he spends, so don't ever think I don't know what's going on. You're not half as slick as you think you are. You aren't going to take him from me." I have no idea what to even think. I did not expect this after years of no communication. I'm very uncomfortable. This whole situation doesn't sound great to me. Like, okay, he has a different wife and some other kids with that wife, but his son, nothing to do with it. That he can't be a part of it. He's a separate thing, and I see him a couple times a day, and I just buy him a lot of good stuff, and that's all that is. Like, that, am I wrong that that's kind of a weird arrangement? Like, as a kid, I mean, I know we can all say, like, as a kid, like, yeah, I'd rather have the PS5. Like, me right now, yeah, I'd like a PS5, sure, but I think as a kid, I would more rather have a relationship with my dad and not be getting, like, sectioned off where it's like, no, I can see my dad very briefly here and there, but otherwise he wants nothing to do with me, and I don't get to know his other family because I'm not his real family. Like, that seems weird. I don't like that. I don't want to judge them. If it works for them, I guess, but I can also see where, like, as his current wife, that would be a weird arrangement. Like, no, honey, you can never meet her or my other child, and I will see them and spend money on them and stuff, but you'll never meet. Like, I don't know. It seems like a really almost kind of weirdly immature way of doing things, like just this denial of everything. I don't like any of this. Story 1. My girlfriend, 30 female, is upset at me, 32 male. She doesn't want to have internet or Wi-Fi at the house. We have lived together for over a year, and we have our good and bad times, and lately it's been rough. She's gone from the house all the time. She rarely shares where she is or where she goes. She spends time with me less and less. I've talked to her about this and how I feel a need for more time together, but to no avail. When we moved into this house to live together, she told me she didn't want to have internet, Wi-Fi, a TV, or a computer. All things I enjoy and I used to love were hobbies like playing my PS5, my PC, watching sports, etc., but it was very important to her. I agreed and was more than willing to sell my things, earn some extra money, and focus on her and her hobbies. She much prefers board games, time in nature, etc., and I honestly love those things too. At first, she gave me a lot of her time, and our time together was great. Lots of time with board games, outside, playing sports together, being active, etc. So much time outside of work was just us. Over time, she's found new hobbies, new things to do outside of us, and that has left me alone quite a lot lately. Sometimes for 5 to 10 hours per day, some days less, but some days more. The short of it is, I'm bored with nothing to do but other things I'm not really interested in. I don't want to go out, but I don't want to be stuck here at the house by myself with nothing to do except chores, be on my phone, or sleep. I told her I want to get back into gaming, get a TV, PS5, and internet. She blew up and was peed, yelled at me, and refused to talk to me about it. She left the house for the rest of the day and was gone for 7 to 8 hours, but during that time, instead of being bored again while she was gone, I went ahead and did the things I said I was going to do. Well, today is the following day, and I just told her what I purchased and did to be clear about it and not hide it. She got angry, said I knew having the internet was a deal breaker and I did it anyway, said some other hurtful things, and then asked me to leave. I'm sure I could have communicated this better, but I just want to know if I can save this somehow and still have something to do like game or watch TV, even if only while she's gone. I told her while she was home or wanted to go out together that I would always give her and the home 100% priority, and I mean that, but that didn't matter. Okay, this is not a healthy relationship, and she is being unreasonable. I'm sorry, it's not unreasonable to, if both of you agree that you want a household without internet, without TV, and all that kind of stuff, more power to you. I like the internet and TV, obviously, I'm on it, but, I also get that it can be kind of bad. Social media is just an awful thing, and TV can really drain away your time and stuff like that. That's fine. But it seems like it's stuff that she desperately wants to avoid. But that doesn't mean that you should have to. You should be able to have that stuff if that's your interest. Because for some couples, sure, you are all each other has and you just keep each other entertained. Whatever. If that's truly what makes you happy, fine. But I think for most people, in couples, you have different interests. My partner does not really like to play video games. We did Mario Wonder a bit, but very, very rarely does she ever. I like to play some video games. So I do. She likes to do puzzles a lot more than I do, so she does a lot of puzzles and everything in the winter time. I typically don't. Every once in a while I will, but it's fine. People shouldn't have to rely on their partner 100% for everything, for complete fulfillment and all of their spare time. And clearly she doesn't. She goes out and does other things. What if you were just like, no, we have nothing at home. So I don't want part of the deal with this. If no TV, then you don't go out. You're my only source of entertainment. Like, do you see how that doesn't make any sense? It doesn't add up. So yeah, I'm sorry. If she's going to be that dead set on not having any of these things, I think you're probably better off not together. That doesn't feel like a good partnership. And maybe I'm missing some stuff. Maybe you can figure and work it out and you'll be happy. I don't know, but I don't think that that's healthy. Story 2. My wife told my AP I'd rather be 80-year-old me than 20-year-old you, and it haunts me every day. My wife and I were high school sweethearts. We are both 40 and have been together for 25 years. We have 2 children together, 5 and 6. For the past 5 years, I've thought that we are together because we basically grew up together. I met my now girlfriend, 28. I know I'm 12 years older, but I met her at work. She is beautiful and attractive, and I thought she was this new change I wanted. Instead of breaking it off with my ex and doing the right thing, I cheated and I got caught. My wife was so gracious about it. She didn't want us to be together anymore. This was a year ago, and I left our house and rented an apartment. We've yet to start divorce, although I don't want to. Neither of us was talking about it. My girlfriend, however, is not so happy about this, and mainly because I left our big house that's originally my house to my wife and daughters. I inherited from my grandparents, and it is worth a fortune right now. My girlfriend means that it is my family home, and for me, yes it is. My family is living there. But my girlfriend meant that when we get divorced, my wife has no claim to the house. 3 weeks ago, my girlfriend and I were dropping our daughters with their mother, and my girlfriend went against my wishes and started talking to my wife about the house. My wife was confused and said that the house is hers and her daughter's, and she looked at me all confused, but my girlfriend told her that it was mine, and it was time to move on. My wife then said that my girlfriend shouldn't put her nose in other people's business. Girlfriend became angry and said that my wife is a hag who is bitter because she's old. My wife smiled and said, "Is your age your only redeeming quality? Because that won't last." Then she said that she'd rather be 80-year-old herself than 20-year-old my girlfriend. She wasn't angry or bitter. She isn't old either. She's 40, like me. Am I so old according to my girlfriend? She's very beautiful too. I don't know what my girlfriend was thinking. I felt so ashamed and angry with myself. My girlfriend was immature and embarrassing. I've been unhappy for months now, but if I broke it off, it means that I have hurt my family for nothing. My wife called me the next day and said that maybe we should start talking about divorce. I broke down crying the moment we ended the call. Now every time I see her, I want to be in her arms and crying. Just thinking about 80-year-old her with 80-year-old me beside her. The way we envisioned ourselves every time we saw an elderly couple holding hands or kissing, and we thought this would be us too. I realized I'd rather have 80-year-old her than 20-year-old anyone. But I've messed that up. You sure did. You absolutely messed it up. And I would say this, I don't know if you necessarily want to go back with her because you want to be with her, or because you want the comfort and security of that 20-some year relationship that you were so comfortable in. I don't know for sure. Maybe you do really love her. Maybe you did really screw up. Maybe you can fix things. Maybe not. She sure doesn't have to forgive you for cheating, because it's a gross thing to do. And yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sound like you really want to stay with your 20-something girlfriend, and your 20-something girlfriend doesn't sound like a great person. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any real advice for you. If you cheat, you kind of gotta deal with whatever hands people are willing to give you at that point. So try and do better. Maybe have some talks. Maybe ask for couples therapy. I don't know, but I wouldn't get your hopes up. Sorry. Story 3. Oh, I can quit? Not without the final say I can't. At my last job, my boss, let's call her Kay, hated me. She turned everything into a competition. She mocked me publicly. She took credit for my work. She divulged my personal medical information in front of all our coworkers. She was cruel, and needless to say, I avoided her as much as I could. So, now that the stage is set, here's the context. End of 2020, coronavirus blazing. I had just had my first baby. I was a nervous wreck my entire pregnancy, working from home and being extra careful. After maternity leave, which was disgustingly short by the way, I had returned to the office with some precautions set in place. My boss became crueler to me over those first few weeks back and suddenly announced that, regardless of any negative feelings towards it, she had decided we all had to attend this training in another state. Keep in mind that there were mandatory 2-week at-home quarantines in place for anyone coming back to my state, but my boss fully planned on ignoring those quarantines and demanding we all would return to the office as soon as we got back. I was carrying a heavy workload and pulling a lot of the weight around the office, and I had some rank. So I felt fully comfortable expressing my deep concerns to Kay, telling her that it was peak COVID season and that I had a newborn to worry about now. I expressed I simply didn't feel comfortable going in the middle of a global pandemic and asked if there was a remote training I could attend instead. She firmly, adamantly insisted there was no remote training and informed me that I could quit if I was that upset with her decisions. It's important to note that she insisted on this for weeks, even claiming to have contacted the training organization to make sure. I decided on the spot after that meeting that I would be quitting. But I needed to check my boxes first, which took me a few weeks to figure out. Sometime after this meeting and her incessant insistence that there was no remote training, it finally occurred to me to check with the organization putting on the training and ask them to clarify if there truly was a remote training or not. I did, and lo and behold, there was, and they had been offering it for months. I asked them to email this information to me. Now, to figure out how to use this valuable information, right? Wrong. As soon as I stepped back into the office, Kay started fake empathizing with me out of nowhere in front of all our coworkers, saying she really wished she didn't need to force me to go to this training. So I said, if you feel so bad, let me go to the remote training. She looked at me in surprise, and her face turned beet red. Before she could fight me, I pulled up the email with the information and read it aloud in front of all our coworkers. No one said anything. They just stared wide-eyed at her while she blubbered like a fool. Long story short, after pulling that fast one on her, I pulled her into a private meeting and gave my notice. She was horrified because, as I stated prior, I carried a lot of the work around the office. But, like she said, I could quit if I didn't like her decisions. Oh, man, I wish that there was some way that you could have done even more and gotten her to lose her job or something, because I genuinely just can't stand terrible bosses like that. And she is a terrible boss and a bad person on top of that. And I think people like that do deserve to lose their job and hopefully learn a lesson from it and become better people. And then maybe she could be an understanding, reasonable person who could become a boss again and lead people with empathy and reason and just not being a total D-bag. So, yeah, good on you for quitting. I hope it left Karen with an absolute mess, and I certainly hope that it did not negatively affect your other coworkers who I'm sure did not deserve whatever crap Kay was throwing at him.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.